NASSCOM Game Developers Conference, and we're in conversation with Stephane D'Astous, who's joining us here, and he has been at the helm of Eidos Montreal for many, many years. He's set up the studio until recently, was of course overseeing operations. You're a veteran with the industry, Stephane, if I could say that. And you come from Canada, where the hub of innovation has always been there, where gamers have always traditionally gone, because the environment seems to be very conducive for developing better and better games. First time to India, I'm assuming?
Yes, and
yes?
I'm very pleased.
Okay. So what brings you here, and what comes to mind when you come to this conference here in India?
Well, I have attended a lot of GDC's events around the world, but not the one in India. Mm-hmm. And I was very curious of the status of the industry in India, because it's always very evolving very rapidly. And I'm learning a lot.
So in your experiences, have you interacted with any Indian developers? What has that experience told you so far?
As Eidos Montreal, we haven't, but we have other studios within the Square Enix group that has, with very positive response, and among other things for animation. And I was curious to see what India could offer.
Mm-hmm. Have you managed to sample any of the games so far, perhaps at this conference, or some of the content that has been developed here in India?
Well, since I've been here, I've been downloaded a lot of mobile games, okay. And I will be playing them as soon as possible, but I've heard very good things about them.
Okay. Give us a sense of which way the wave is going, because we're talking about different platforms.
Yes.
Mobile has become very big. Then there's pure console gaming and two new versions, I think the PS4, which will be coming out, and the Xbox One. So what's happening out there?
Well, the trends are multiple in our industry. As I like to say, there's almost a perfect storm in our industry. There's the console industry platform has evolved. As you know, we have two consoles coming out this week and next week. We have the free-to-play business model that really changed a lot of things. We have the cloud gaming also, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of new elements, game-breaking elements that the game industry has to adapt, and to make sure in which field they want to focus. Because if you try to be good in all of those fields, you don't have a lot of chance to succeed. So you need to make sure that what you want to do, and try to do it as well as possible.
What do you tell developers? What's the right way, let's say, of doing it? Do you just develop a cool game which you think you like, or do you first decide the platform, decide the target audience, and then go about developing?
I think the proper approach is to look at your resources, look at your talent, make sure to identify your talent best quality. If your staff is good into doing AAA or doing very fast evolving free-to-play type of games, you need to identify your strength and your weaknesses before doing anything. Because if you're heading on a long path towards a target which you don't have the correct staff, skill sets, it's going to be a long path. So you need to really look into your staff, your talent, to make sure that it's well aligned with your product.
Okay, sure. And what about revenue models? What about the ease of making money, especially for an indie developer? I'm
not sure if it's easy to make money in the gaming industry, to be honest. It's quite a difficult, very competitive period. In the platform, on the console platform, there's a few games that are doing a lot of money. We've seen GTA generating $1 billion in 3 days. That's the record in the entertainment industry. All media.
Grand Theft Auto, right?
Grand Theft Auto 5,
sorry. The 5, yeah.
So that's more than any medium in entertainment.
$1 billion in 3 days.
$1 billion in 3 days. And that doesn't mean there's no other space for other types of game. But
does that tell you that it's really console gaming, that's really what it's more about? Or
no,
is that where the money is?
As I say, the pie chart is just evolving. We need to understand that free-to-play will not kill the console game, as television didn't kill cinema. You need to understand that, and I mean, it's giving more choices to the consumer, and you need to know where you want to act within this field.
Okay, you mentioned cloud.
Yes.
What is that doing to the gaming world?
Well, it's how it's distributed, obviously. It doesn't profoundly affect the development to a certain point, but certainly to the whole chain from the development to the hands of the consumers, you need to consider this. And when you're doing 100% digital distribution, and when you're saying to the customer, well, in fact, you'll be playing and your code will be hosted thousands of miles or kilometers away, it's still, you need to take this in account because you need to have very good code, have very good compression systems, and you need to have a very good bandwidth. So there's a whole chain of things that you need to consider.
So while it might not do too much to sort of change the experience for a player, what will the cloud do to business models, you think?
Well, again, it's people might think not to invest as much in hardware. Okay. Because the hardware will be hosted somewhere else. So this gives a greater access to the consumer, and they don't need to say, do I have the correct hardware to play this type of game? So I think on the long term, medium long term, the hardware eventually will be less impactful because that will be hosted somewhere, somehow in another digital reality. So people will have access to content. And so what is important for studios that develop content, well, content will always be king. On console, free-to-play, mobile, iOS, tablet, at the end of the day, content will always be king.
Now, you come from Montreal, which is pretty much sort of the mecca of gaming and game development. What would you say to a lot of Indian developers who are trying to kind of experiment with different models, trying to create these new cool games? What's the advice?
Well, it's a challenging period, I must say. Montreal has established its hub within 15 years only. Maybe because we were lucky in certain aspects, because, as I like to say, the planets were aligned. But it took...
and the tax credits, of course.
And the tax credits. But as I mentioned, very often, if people think that Montreal is successful strictly because of the tax credit, if it was just a question of money, they would have gone somewhere else because there's more generous tax credit in other countries. Why it is successful in Montreal, it's because, well, the pool of talent. We have almost 9,000 people associated in content creation. And this critical mass that we've created in a short period of time is growing in double digits every year. So if I was an investor, I would want to have, yes, very good financial conditions, but I would make sure that I have the talent available where I'm going. And that talent is growing in the short, medium term. So that's why there's a lot of reasons why we were successful, but not just because of the tax credit.
And finally, we're about to turn on the year. It's 2014. What does it look like for you, for your work, and the sort of games that you'd like to experience?
Well, I think the new business models of the free-to-play is a great puzzle, and I like to resolve puzzles if it's possible. But it's very challenging because now, as I mentioned, content is very important for the developers. Now we've been asked to give it away for free and to try to monetize afterwards because it's a good game. And that really changes a lot of the mentality of a content creator. Previously, he worked several years on a content, sold it for for $60 normally for a platform. But now you need to shift. There's a mentality shift that you need to adopt. And you need to give away a portion of your content and hope that the consumer will continue to appreciate it and to monetize it. So that's a great challenge.
Just to understand that, free-to-play, because that is quite big here in India as well.
Yes.
What do you think are the likely ways in which this monetization will happen? We've heard about advertising and whether that's sustainable, or whether, how you go on picking up points or picking up sort of things on the go as you progress into the game.
Yes. Well, it's how the game is designed. It has to be very accessible at first. People need to have fun with it. And afterwards, you need to create challenges for the player to continue evolving in your game. It's not necessarily with the storytelling, because on a phone you don't necessarily want to play a game that will take 20 hours to complete. It's something that you want to play during your wait at the airport, or very quick games on the bus, on the metro subway. So you need to adapt your design so you can have mini games and challenging games afterwards, so people can invest in your game to continue experimenting your game.
Okay, so personally, finally, what are your favorite games? What kind of games do you like to play?
Well, actually, I like, obviously, big platform games, console games, sorry. I'm a big Fallout. That's a franchise that I love. GTA, I love to play. Assassin's Creed, I love to play. Mass Effect. But recently, I've been playing a lot of iOS games on the tablet, but because the tablet has a mid-size screen. In the video game, we see 4 different sizes of screen, which really determines how you want to construct your game. There's the mobile, the iOS, the tablet, you have the PC screen, and you have the big TV screen. So depending which customer you're targeting, you need to adjust your games. And iOS tablet games, I've been having a lot of fun with puzzle game, endless runners game, and games that are addictive.
Is the PC screen going out of that list of 4 screens?
How many times I've heard PC is going to be dead. Since I've been in the video game since 15 years, people are saying PC is at the end of its run, and it's completely untrue. I personally think it's going to be there for a long, long time. We know that Steam with Valve has 65 million active monthly paying subscribers. So PC, for the people that think that it's going out, I'm not too sure about that.
It's going to be a little while longer, perhaps. All right, Stephane, great talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.